So I went down this little internet wormhole a little while ago about all this stuff where the robots are coming to take our jobs. I've discovered that the robots aren't coming to take my teaching job just yet, which is good news. But what about my writing job? There's this new online tool thing called Botnik where you can feed in the text of a book or a play or a script or whatever, and it can like learn a vocabulary, and you can use that to create a predictive keyboard to write new stuff. You might have seen there was a Harry Potter chapter floating around that was created using this. I'll put a link to it, it's pretty good. So anyway, I wanted to see if Botnik could write me a new chapter of the Phoenix Files, which was this book series that I wrote once upon a time. So I fed the whole Phoenix Files series into Botnik, and this is the results. This is a new chapter. I looked down into the bottomless darkness. "What happened to Bill?" I whispered. He was looking frustrated for a while. Dad stretched up to see the medical staff and suddenly turned around. I asked him to keep poisoning the doc, but he seemed to have forgotten how. I glanced over at Peter, who'd said Peter was the best way to get back down into the cabin. "How will you get him down with all of the guards in the vicinity?" Peter grabbed my hands and started bashing my stomach with his face. "Let me explain again. We can organize to make Montag start fighting the medical staff, and then I'll get back against the wall and..." He broke off as a harsh beeping sound split the room. Dr. Montag strode across the cabin and started bashing the medical personnel into the ground with his bare hands. Boosh! "I told you he was with us," Peter said. We got up and crept down the stairs to the floor. I stumbled forward in the shadows as Dad injected Peter with something completely disproportionate. Peter swayed and started clawing at my throat. He stumbled off into the cabin and Dad just nodded to me like he'd said a good idea. "What are you doing?" I asked as we left him behind. "You know what happens if he sees you and your friend Jordan." "Why do you reckon?" I felt myself sweating despite the cold mist on the ground. I whispered hurriedly to make him back off. "Alright, it's not exactly unusual for him to come up with something completely idiotic, but clearly we need to keep going." We rounded a little rug, and suddenly Jordan was right there with Crazy Bill. "You really thought we were sitting back against the wall at a time like this?" she smiled. I looked around and grinned at her face, centimeters from me. "You reckon we'll either get out of here or something?" I performed an ultrasound on her stomach, and then she realized footsteps echoing through the corridor. Calvin skulked up with groceries. I felt my stomach twist. "No point trying to hide behind the floor again," he said firmly. We stopped walking and dropped to the floor. Hands grabbed my feet and pulled my feet back against the stone floor. "Luke!" Jordan said. "I thought we should have a couple of minutes of talking about Tabitha," said Calvin coldly. He led us out of the building and started pushing me and Bill and Dad and Jordan. I shouted at the top of my voice to make people suspicious. Dad sat down and traced a finger over his lips. It was already over. We were now looking slightly uncomfortable as Calvin barked at us to get up. Suddenly, Jordan tried to attack him with her whole body weight. She grabbed hold of his mouth and grabbed his eyes and started clawing at him. Apparently clawing is a lot of what happens in the Phoenix Files. "No!" he said, quickly regaining his voice. "What are you doing?" I turned left and started running. Jordan stepped away from his face, and we both went flying down the street with both hands outstretched. "Ah! Ah! Run!" "I thought we were going to..." "No way," said Jordan. "I couldn't let you die. That would be terrible." I felt my lips on her hand. The sound of booming flames echoed through the clearing, and we both looked back to see Peter wiping his eyes. He stared right at me and lurched forward. Kind of want to know what's going to happen next. Maybe I should write the next chapter. Anyway, I'll let you decide whether you think the robots are coming for my job. Oh wait, no, it's YouTube. Do you think the robots are coming for my job? Comment below and subscribe to my channel and etc.